I want to start this episode saying that a clean break from your pre-fire career works. If you've done the maths, if you've hit your number with margin and you walk out the door on a Friday and never look back, that version of fire is real. People do it. Some of them are happy. I'm not here to tell you that that path is wrong. So if you're listening to this thinking, actually, I want the clean break, I've earned the clean break, stop trying to talk me out of it, fine. Go, genuinely. This episode probably isn't for you. This episode is for the other person, the one who's been telling themselves they want a clean break for about 4 years now, and somehow the clean break keeps being 2 more bonus cycles away. The one who's running the numbers on a Sunday night and the numbers technically work, but something in them won't let them pull the trigger. The one who, if they're really honest, doesn't actually want to never work again. They just want to never work like this again. If that's you, I want to suggest something uncomfortable. The reason you can't pull the trigger might not be that you don't have enough money. It might be that you've been planning the wrong exit. You've built the career, you're building the portfolio, you're close to freedom. So what now? Welcome to Life After Enough. Money, meaning, and the life you design when work becomes optional. I'm Nick. I'm racing towards early retirement and figuring out who I become when the job no longer dictates what I do with my time. Let's get into it. So let me describe the exit you've probably been planning. See if this sounds familiar. You hit the number, you give notice properly, and the right amount of notice because you're a professional. You work out your last few months. There's a farewell drink. Someone gives you a speech. You hand over all of your matters. You clear your desk on a Friday afternoon and just walk out the building for the last time. And then on Monday, you obviously don't go back. Not that Monday, not the Monday after, not ever. That's the exit. That's the shape of it in your head. Clean, total, a line drawn through your life with before on one side and after on the other. Now, there's nothing wrong with that exit. As I said at the top, people do it and it works for them. But I want you to notice something about it. Notice how binary it is. There's no version of that exit where you do 3 days a week for a year. No version where you keep 2 clients you actually like. No versions where you take 6 months off and then decide. No version where you drop your title but keep your desk. None of those versions exist in the picture you've been carrying around. There's the job, full intensity, exactly as it is now, and then there's nothing. That's the shape I'm calling the wrong exit. Not wrong in the sense that it's a bad outcome, but wrong in the sense that it might not be your outcome. And you're planning it anyway, for years, because it's the only shape you have been shown. Here's the diagnostic. If I asked you right now to describe what you're working towards, I bet you'd give me a number. Probably to the nearest 50,000, maybe to the nearest 10. You know that number cold. However, if I ask you to describe what your week looks like on the other side of that number, what would you say? For most people I've had this conversation with, the answer goes fuzzy, quite fast. I'd travel, I'd spend more time with the kids, I'd finally write the thing, maybe. Well, what does Tuesday look like then? What does Tuesday at 2 p.m. look like in November when it's raining and the kids are at school and you've already been to the gym? I can describe Tuesday at 2 p.m. pretty specifically because I had it. When I took my sabbatical, I had the time, I had the money, I'd done my thing for the morning, and at 2 p.m. I sat there and realized I had no idea what I was supposed to be doing. Everyone I knew was at work. I'd done my run, I'd had my lunch. The afternoon was just mine, and I didn't have a plan for it. Not that Tuesday, not the next Tuesday, and not the one after that. That was the moment it hit me that you can't just aim for the number and expect everything to be okay on the other side. The number doesn't build you a Tuesday. The number doesn't tell you what you're for. No one needs you to be anything in particular. If you're a regular Speak Monday reader, I've written about this before. I called it the Random Tuesday Experiment, where you pick a random Tuesday a year from now. What are you actually doing at 11 a.m., 2 p.m., and at 4 p.m.? You have to be specific. It can't just be traveling. Specifically what? Where? With whom? Doing what? Most people who try discover that they can't get past about an hour before the picture goes blank. That's the same fuzziness I'm describing. The number is sharp. the Tuesday is fuzzy. If that's you, here's the diagnosis. You haven't been planning an exit. You've been planning a finish line. And the crazy thing with finish lines is that they're easier to design than lives are. The clean break works if you've done the work to know what's on the other side. Most people in the messy middle probably haven't. They've done the work to know what they're running from, but that's not the same thing. So why is this the only shape that we get shown? Why does almost every conversation about fire collapse back into one number and one finish line? I don't think it's some big conspiracy. I just think it's the result of three forces, all pulling in the same direction. First, the people you hear from in this space have a strong incentive to tell clean stories. I quit my six-figure job and I now travel the world is a really clean story. Whereas I dropped to 3 days a week, kept some consulting on the side, and feel okay about my life, probably isn't. Second, the maths is genuinely cleaner with one threshold. Hitting a single number is a binary event you can put on a dashboard. What mix of part-time work, consulting income, and portfolio drawdown would I need over 5 years to phase out? Well, that's more of a Monte Carlo simulation. Even if the second one is more accurate to most people's actual lives, the first one is what gets built, what gets shared, and what gets aspired to. Third, and this is the one that most people don't see, the fire community polices itself. People who took the messy paths get the question, are you really retired though? If you're earning anything, you're not really fire. You're Coast Fire or Barista Fire or some other diluted version of the real thing. The orthodoxy is the binary. Anything else is a footnote. So the binary survives, not because it's the right answer, but because it's the answer the system wants you to land on. But there's a big problem with that. The maths the system is optimizing for, this clean, single threshold version, is wrong. Or at least it's wrong for almost everyone. Let me show you what I mean. Quick one before we continue. I send a weekly email every Monday morning that goes deeper than the podcast. It's not a recap, it's a separate idea, usually something more personal, plus a question to sit with for the week. It's free, it's one email, and you can sign up at lifeafterenough.com. Link is in the show notes. Okay, back to it. The standard FIRE calculation assumes one thing about your post-exit income: zero. You stop. The portfolio carries everything from there. That assumption is doing enormous work. And once you look at it, it kind of falls apart. Here's the 4% rule version. Roughly every dollar of annual expenses you need to cover from your portfolio requires $25 of portfolio. So if your expenses are $80,000 a year, you need $2 million invested. Standard FIRE arithmetic. Now let's flip it. Every dollar of annual expenses you don't need your portfolio to cover because you're earning it in some other way, well, that saves you $25 of portfolio. Let's make that concrete. Imagine you earn $30,000 a year of post-exit income. Maybe 2 days a week consulting, maybe a part-time role somewhere. Maybe you're teaching, it doesn't matter. $30,000 a year. Under standard FIRE maths, that $30,000 is worth $750,000 of portfolio you don't need to have. Listen to that again. $750,000. $750,000 off your number just for earning 30 grand a year doing something, anything that you might actually enjoy. If you're earning 50,000 on the other side, that's $1.25 million off your number. And let's go crazy. If you're earning 75,000, which is well within the range of a portfolio career or a consulting practice, you're knocking just under 2 million off the portfolio you thought you needed. This isn't theoretical. Studies of actual retirees consistently find most of them earn something. Even the ones who set out to do nothing. They get bored. They get a project. The project pays. The zero post-exit income assumption is basically never true in practice, but we just plan as if it is. So if you're 3 years away from your number on the standard maths, 3 more bonus cycles, 3 more years of just 1 more year, and you'd be perfectly happy to do 30 grand a year of something else on the side, you might already be past your number. Right now, today. The thing you've been planning to grind through is something you've already finished. Now, I can hear the objection. What if the side income dries up? What if my consulting work doesn't materialize? What if I get sick? Well, fair, real, you should pad. But the version of padding most people do isn't actually padding. It's overshooting by a factor of 2 or 3 because they've assumed zero income for 30 years on a path almost nobody actually walks. That's not financial conservatism. That's a failure of imagination. The maths doesn't care about ideology. It just shows the leverage, and the leverage is enormous. So if the math supports a wider range of exits, what do those wider exits actually look like? Because earn a bit on the side isn't really a plan. Here's where I want to be a little bit careful, because the version of this list you usually see in FIRE content is, here are 5 ways to keep doing your job in lighter doses. That's not the list I'm giving you. The list I'm giving you is for the person who wants out of their career, fully out. But that person is also willing to consider that out of my career and no work ever again might not be the same thing. With that frame, here are the shapes future work can take. So number 1, coast FIRE. You build a portfolio big enough that compounding alone takes you to your full number, even if you never add another dollar. From that point, all you need is income to cover annual expenses. It doesn't have to be from your career. It can be from anything. The portfolio is doing the heavy lifting. You're just covering today. Number 2, Barista FIRE. You have a smaller portfolio than full FIRE would expect, and you cover the gap with low-stakes work. The original term was literal, people working at coffee shops in the US for health insurance. The principle generalizes, though. Low-stakes paid work that covers the gap your portfolio doesn't reach. The point of the work isn't necessarily the money in the same way. The point is to be doing something. The money is just a side effect. Number 3, a portfolio career. This is the one I think most people in the messy middle haven't really considered. You don't have one job. You have 3 or 4 lower stakes income streams. None of them is all consuming. None of them defines you. Maybe you teach 2 days a month. Maybe you consult on something narrow or sit on a board. You write, you're earning, you're engaged. You're not anyone's full-time anything. For a lot of people coming out of senior corporate roles, this is the shape that fits because you've spent 20 years being defined by a single role, and the relief isn't to do nothing, it's to be more than one thing. Number 4 is consulting in your old field, the honest version of this. If you left law or banking or whatever it is, and you're considering coming back as a consultant, interrogate why. If the answer is because I genuinely enjoyed parts of it and I want to keep my hand in on those parts, well, fine, that's a real answer. But if the answer is because I don't know what else I do, that's a different answer. That's not consulting. That's hostage taking by your old identity. Be honest with yourself about which it is. Number 5, and this is the most underrated on FIRE menus, this is non-professional work. Work that isn't a career. Work that doesn't show up on a CV. It could be volunteering at scale, coaching a sports team, running a small physical thing, maybe a market stall, a workshop, a class. The kind of work where when someone asks you what you do, the answer is awkward to give in an elevator pitch format. That awkwardness is the feature. It means you've stepped out of an identity as a job loop. You're doing something. You're not your job. Number 6 is building something you've been wanting to build. The thing you keep saying you do if you had time. Maybe a business, maybe a creative project, maybe a community. The version of this that goes wrong is when people leap straight from full-time career to now I'm a founder and assume the leverage from their old career carries over. It usually doesn't. The version that goes right is when people start building before they leave, accept that the new thing is going to take time to find its shape, and aren't asking it to replace their old salary on day 1. Now here's the thing I want you to hear about this menu. Pick one isn't the assignment. Recognize that the menu exists is the assignment. Most people in the messy middle have spent 5 years staring at a binary menu, job or no job. They haven't even let themselves look at the menu I just read out, because the FIRE binary trained them to think anything off it was second class. It's not. It's the actual menu. The binary was the children's menu. Okay, so this all sounds, in theory, like a financial planning conversation, and it isn't really. Underneath the maths and the menu, there's something else going on, and I want to name it before we close. If everything I've just said is true, if the maths supports a wider exit, if the menu is real and varied, if planning a glide path is genuinely possible, then why don't people do it? The honest answer is that all or nothing thinking is usually not a financial preference, it's an identity one. Here's what I mean. When the only exit you can imagine is total, when the version where you drop your career but pick up something else feels somehow worse than grinding for 5 more years at the thing you don't want to be doing, that's an information point. It's telling you something about how fused your identity is with the role. Because if you really, truly didn't care about the role except for the money it produces, you'd be all over the glide path. Of course you would. It's strictly better. You exit faster, you keep some income, you pad your portfolio, and you have something to do. Why wouldn't you take it? Well, the reason why you wouldn't take it, the reason the binary feels safer than the glide path, is that the binary lets you avoid sitting in ambiguity. With the binary, you're either the lawyer or you're retired. Two clean labels. With the glide path, you're what? You're some person doing some things. You don't have a clean label. And clean labels are what most senior professionals have organized their entire identity around for the last 20 years. The clean break feels safer than the glide path because the clean break preserves the binary. You're either or until the day you exit, and you're either or after. The glide path forces you to be a both and both and is much harder if you've never practiced it. I want to be honest about how I know this, because I've been on the wrong side of it. As you know, a few years ago, I had what felt at the time like a clear answer. I was working as an in-house corporate counsel in London. I had a dream. I left my job. I went all in. I ran out of money inside 2 years, and I came back to law to rebuild. But here's the thing I didn't see at the time. The adventure fitness business could have been built in parallel. I could have gone to my boss and said, look, I want to drop to 3 or 4 days a week. I'm building this thing on the side. I want to keep my hand in here. I want the income while it grows. There's a version of that conversation where the answer is yes. Losing 40% of me was a way better deal for the team than losing 100% of me. I think they would have done the maths. I didn't have that conversation. I didn't even consider that conversation because the script in my head was binary. You commit to the dream or you don't. You're an entrepreneur or you're a lawyer. You leap or you stay. The both and version, work 3 days a week, build the dream the other 4, see what happens over 18 months, that wasn't on the menu I had in front of me, even though it was structurally probably available. The choice cost me, not just money, although it really did cost me money, it cost me the chance to build the thing carefully, and it cost me the option to come back to legal work on better terms. Because when I did come back, I came back fully. I had to. The bridge had been burned. The lesson I took from that, and the reason I'm doing this show, is that the most expensive thing I did wasn't taking the leap. The leap might have worked with better preparation. The most expensive thing I did was assume the leap was the only move. I should also say that I'm not standing on the other side of this telling you I've got it all figured out. I'm in this right now. I'm planning my own exit from law, again, and the version I'm working towards isn't a clean binary finish line. It's something far messier. I can describe the shape of it now, even if I can't describe the details yet. I want something creative. Life After Enough is the start of that. I want something altruistic, something that lets me give back. I also want something that connects me to people, like coaching. And I want fitness and health to run through all of it as a through line, not as a hobby on the side. That's the portfolio I'm trying to build. And to be honest, there's a part of me, the fire brain part, that doesn't quite trust it. There's a voice that says, that's not real fire. That's just hedging. If you were really doing this properly, you'd hit a number and stop. The portfolio career thing sounds nice on a podcast, but it's not the real version. That voice is loud. I think most people in this audience have a version of it, and I don't think you make it go away by ignoring it. I think you make it quieter by doing small experiments I've talked about in the show before. Try a thing for 3 months, see what it teaches you, adjust. The other thing I want to be honest about, if you asked me right now to name another job I'd feel suited to, I couldn't. I genuinely couldn't. I've spent almost 20 years being a corporate lawyer. My expertise is narrow but deep. The version where I freelance or consult on something non-law sounds great in theory, but who exactly is going to hire me for that? To me, it feels like professionally, the menu is binary: lawyer or nobody. That's why, for me, the answer has to be building my own thing. Not because building is glamorous, but because the application route, turn up with a CV and ask someone to give me a work in a field that isn't mine, I don't think that's available. Almost 20 years of compounding expertise in one direction means you can't just step sideways, at least easily. You've got to build sideways yourself. I don't think that's a personal failure, though. That's a structural feature of having had a serious career. The same compounding that's built your financial portfolio also built the narrowness of your professional identity. They came together. You can't have one without the other. So if you're sitting there thinking, okay, but I literally don't know what else I'd do, and nobody would hire me anyway, you're not broken. You're just experiencing the cost of having been good at one thing for a long time. The portfolio career doesn't get designed in a spreadsheet, it gets discovered by doing. And for most of us, the doing means building, not applying for another job. Now, here's the part I want to say carefully, because I don't want anyone to walk away from this episode thinking the answer is to stay at your job part-time. That might be the answer. For some of you, it is the answer, but for some of you, it isn't. I'll use myself again as an example, but in the present tense. I don't want to go part-time at my current job. I need a clean break from this career. That's just true for me. The career isn't the thing I want less of, it's the thing I want done. But what I am open to, and this is the distinction, is part-time other things, non-professional things, different work. The clean break from the career is one decision, but what I do with my time on the other side is a separate decision. And the second decision doesn't have to be nothing forever. It can be a portfolio of things I'd actually like to do. And that's the diagnostic I want to leave you with. Not, are you willing to go part-time at your current role? For many of you, the right answer to that is no, and you should trust that. The diagnostic is this, though. When you imagine yourself a year after the clean break, can you picture any sort of work? Paid or unpaid, professional or not, part-time or project-based, anything. If you can't, if the only post-exit picture is pure leisure, no work of any kind, ever, well, that's an identity tell. Not because pure leisure is wrong, but because for most people who've worked at high intensity for 20 years, no work of any kind ever turns out to be a fantasy of relief, not a description of a life. And when they get there, they're surprised how flat it feels. That Tuesday at 2 p.m. in November feels exactly the same whether you got there by quitting at 50 or quitting at 60. The work, the real work, is figuring out what you're after actually looks like in enough detail that it's no longer fuzzy. And that's true whether your exit from your career is clean or phased, because the exit from the career was only half of the question. So if you've made it this far, let me leave you with something to sit with. Here's the question. What part of your job are you actually trying to escape? And is it possible you could escape just that part without burning the whole thing down? Just sit with that one. Because for some of you, the answer is going to be, I'm trying to escape it all. I want a clean break from this career. And that's a real, valid answer. But for others, you're going to realize that there are specific elements you're running from. And there is a version of your situation where those elements are gone, but the rest of it is intact. And that version might be more available than you've been letting yourself believe. Either way, the move underneath the question is the same. Stop letting one decision hold the other hostage. The decision about whether you're done with this career is one decision. The decision about what your life looks like on the other side is a separate decision. They've been welded together in your head by the fire binary, by the way this stuff gets talked about, by the all or nothing script most of us inherited. They don't have to be welded together. You can pull them apart. If you've been listening to this and recognizing yourself, if you're the second person I described at the start of the episode, the one who keeps planning a clean break that never quite arrives, that's exactly the work I do inside the Escape Plan. It's an 8-session coaching program for lawyers who have had the financial stability, but not the plan. It doesn't deliver an exit. It delivers a plan. Depending on you, that plan might look like a clean break, a glide path, or something we figure out together. The founding cohort is forming now. Link is in the show notes if you want to take a look. Thanks for listening to Life After Enough. a podcast about money, meaning, and the life you design when work becomes optional. If this episode made you rethink your future, share it with someone who's starting to question the script too. You can follow the show wherever you get your podcasts. I'm your host, Nick, and I'll see you next week as we keep building a life that's truly ours.